Now we are where we are today. Assessment. And this is going to go back to the beginning. And I'm always going to refer back to that first thing I said about a conversation. Okay? The interviewing process today, number one, is a much longer process than it's ever been before for companies both large and small. And the reason being is because what people have determined is that it's a lot less expensive to hire the right person, to take your time and hire the right person, than it is to just go out, do one interview, or like Chris mentioned in the beginning, oh, I know Joe, he's a great guy, he'd fit in, he's great, I've known him for years and I'm gonna hire him. But what you're gonna do is, in the assessment, you're going back to where, yes, you're gonna check and make sure they have the skills and the knowledge to do the job. But what you wanna do is you wanna make sure that they have the behavioral skills to do the job and that they will fit into your company culture. Again, it's back to that. So what's happened today is it's a behavioral interview. And what they've determined through a lot of studies and a lot of, people looking at it, whether it be PhDs or colleges or whatever, doing studies on manufacturers or healthcare companies or whatever, that the behavioral interview is the best predictor if the person is going to fit into the slot and into your company than anything else out there. So again, it's all about people, it's all about their behavior, it's all about how well will they fit. So that's what you're looking at in that respect. And there's our buddy Steve Carrill. We're going to talk about types of interviews. So there you see Steve, he's on the phone. You all know him, he's from the office. You know who Steve Carrill is, you've seen him in tons of things. So what's Steve doing? Steve's doing a screen interview, okay? Screen interview is usually done over the phone. This is the first step in the interview process. Because again, you want to make sure that you're going to get in somebody to go through the interview that you actually have in person. You want to make sure that the person is qualified. You want to get a little bit about their background. If possible, the screen interview is usually HR driven. And if possible, I know some of you are your own business owners, small businesses, whatever. If you can have someone else other than the person doing the actual hiring do the screen interview, whether it be another manager, whether it be a person from the HR department and it's going to be somebody that's working in sales. Again, you want to give them guidelines and they're going to have the job specifications, but if you can do that, we would prefer and recommend that someone else does the initial screen interview first, then you, whoever the hiring person is going to be, sits down and talks to them about their screen interviews. Obviously, they're going to make notes, and they're trying to match the culture and the background of the person to the culture and the background of the company. They're already going to have a pretty good idea if the specifications can be met because you already have a resume. So you're going to have a general feel that this person might be good because you wouldn't call them to go through the screen interview. But again, it doesn't have to be that way. If you're the owner of the company and you're the only one that can do it, then it has to be done that way, that's fine. But we recommend, if all possible, to have someone else do that initial screen interview. Okay, the selection interview. Okay, this is the next step. So after the people have been screened, you may say, okay, we have 3 candidates that qualify based on the screen interviews that we want to actually bring in for an interview. And when I say bring in, these are usually done face-to-face, but as we all know with today in technology, it can be done via Skype or other ways of doing interviews without being face-to-face. If, for example, for whatever reason, the person, maybe they live in California, but they're moving back to New Jersey and they saw your ad somehow and they want to come work for you, so you could do it. But if you're doing it over, technology, please make sure that your technology works, because there's nothing worse than to be starting and, you set it all up, you set time aside and your time is valuable. Well, their time's valuable too. So you want to make sure that everything's going to work properly. Again, things happen, we all know that, but do the best you can. But generally, these are a face-to-face meeting. Usually, again, these are driven by the person that's actually going to do the hiring, whether it be the hiring manager, the owner, whatever the position may be. Okay, so this is a one-on-one. You're going to be doing the matching of the skills and their background to the job description, as always. And again, you want it to be conversational. And when you start to talk about skills and background, what you're going to want to do is, if somebody says, oh yeah, I've done that. Well, you can't let them get away with just that, because you want to pull out more. Well, oh really, how did you do that? Or how did you accomplish that? Or when did you do it? You know, if they did it 10 years ago, maybe it's not relevant to today. So you want to make sure that it's not just, as I said before, question and answer period. You want to be as conversational as possible. Your whole goal is to dig as much information about the person in a short period of time to determine if they're a good fit. Now, the selection interviews, as I said, the process today has been drawn out a lot more than it used to be. It used to be you do a phone interview, people come in for a face-to-face, maybe you'd hire them on the spot. You know, maybe they'd come back one more time. Well, I'll give you an example. My son is a sophomore in college. He's interviewing for a internship this summer. He's in computer engineering. He's interviewed with several different size companies. He did get a job, which is great, in New York City. But what happened was they interviewed him 7 times for an internship. 7 times for an internship. Now, he did get the job, which is great, but that's a long process to go through. So, you know, again, you've also got to be careful, because if you draw the process out too long, the person that you're interviewing is going to find a job somewhere else. You know, we've had that happen. Like I said, we do recruiting. We've had people that we put in through the recruiting process. They start in the interviewing process. You know, the company likes them, but for whatever reason, nobody wants to make a decision because they don't want to be wrong, or they have to enter, their policy is they have to interview with every manager in the company, whatever it may be. And by the time they get to that 5th interview, well, they've been interviewing with 2 other companies. So the guy calls up and says, well, we'd like to interview him again. Well, sorry, he took a job last week. So there's a fine line there. You want to make sure that you're right and you're getting the good quality person that you want, but you can't just draw it out forever. The information is informational, is another type of interview. The informational interview is more of a networking conversation. It's not a formal interview process, but I mean, one thing that you guys all learn from being around here is networking. I mean, that's what we all do. We all learn that from Chris and the team and everybody else. Network, network, network. When we teach somebody that's going through outplacement, the best way to find a job is to network. So a networking interview is conversational. It's not a setup interview. You can be doing it at any type of a function, whether it be a social function, a church function, you know, a networking meeting, the chamber meetings. You network with people. It's casual, but you find out about what they do and what their background is, so that maybe 2-3 months down the road you say, you know, I talked to Joe at this thing and he might be a good fit. You know, he said he did this and he did that, and that's just what I'm looking for. So that's the other type of interviewing. The first 2 obviously are formal and they're designed and they're set up as a time. The third one is more informational and a part of a networking thing. Okay, the interview structure, there's our strong guy over there. What would you say was your biggest strength? The one thing is, when you're doing the interview, we also recommend, if at all possible, to do it in a neutral location. By that I mean, if you can, don't do it in your office. Do it in a, you know, free office. Do it in a conference room. Do it, you know, if you have a little kitchen area and nobody's going to bother you because you don't want to be interrupted.
So when you say neutral space, you don't mean not in your facility.
No, I just mean not in your personal space. Because 2 things. You want to control the interview, and I'll tell you right up front, when we teach somebody to go in to interview, and you've all heard it, if I go into your office and there's a picture of the beach, or there's a fish on the wall, or there's sports memorabilia, what am I going to talk to you about? That's what I'm going to talk to you about. That we tell our people to do it right up front. Say, common ground, that's what you want to do. We want you to control the interview, so by being in that separate space, you're not giving them any clues of your interest or anything. What you want to share during the interview is fine, and depending on how the interview goes, you may want to. But you know, some people interview in a diner or in a lobby of a hotel. That's okay, but generally there's a lot of things going on there, but it works. It all depends on the situation. But we recommend that you do it in a neutral location, not in your facility. I mean, not in your particular office.